The Democratic Party prides itself on being inclusive and advocating for communities of color. But there was a time when racism was at the center of its policies. The Democratic Party began in the early 1800s under Andrew Jackson. It was founded on the belief that democracy should be for all men, not just the elites and landowners. Well, all white men, that is. The party was more than happy for slavery to continue, and it treated Native Americans with brutal contempt. As president, Jackson enforced one of the cruelest policies in American history when he signed the Indian Removal Act into law. White people wanted to settle on native lands, so the Democratic government uprooted Native Americans from their homelands, forcing them to travel west. More than 5,000 natives died during this displacement, now known as the Trail of Tears. By the mid-1800s, a rift in the party emerged over a simple question: should the United States extend slavery to the Western territories? This issue broke the party into two groups: the Southern Democrats, who wanted to expand slavery, and the Northern Democrats, who said the states should decide. That led each side to offer their own candidate in the 1860 presidential election, which ultimately split their vote and allowed Abraham Lincoln, the candidate of the recently formed Republican Party, to win. And these first Republicans, they were against slavery. This, of course, led to the Civil War, which lasted from 1861 to 1865. Meanwhile, the Democrats labeled themselves as the white man's party, attacking the Republican Party as the party for the Negro. As they gained power in the South during Reconstruction, Southern Democrats embraced this mantra, creating the Black Codes. This set of laws kept white supremacy alive by limiting Black Americans' right to property and forcing them to work in low-wage jobs. In Mississippi, one law fined people for unlawfully assembling themselves. The Ku Klux Klan was founded during this time, with some of its members being Southern Democrats. But while the Klan was never officially aligned with the political party, it terrorized Black Southerners. One expert explains their view on this relationship between the Klan and the Democratic Party.
The KKK was not an official organ of the Democratic Party, but it espoused very similar white supremacist views. But the KKK was relatively short-lived during the Reconstruction period.
By the turn of the 20th century, the Democratic Party still controlled the South, and things started to change for it in the North. The party gained more popularity due to its focus on economic growth amid the Great Depression. And a gradual shift in the Democratic Party's identity came in part as Democratic politicians like Harry S. Truman adopted pro-civil rights platforms in the mid-20th century.
This shift begins in the 1930s under Franklin Delano Roosevelt during the Great Depression, not because Roosevelt adopted a civil rights platform, he didn't, but because the federal government, for the first time through the New Deal programs, actually providing aid and assistance to African Americans. And in 1934, in the midterm elections, for the first time in the history of the country, the African American vote shifted from being predominantly Republican to being predominantly Democratic.
In 1964, Democratic President Lyndon B. Johnson signed the Voting Rights Act and Civil Rights Act into law. Black voters started to go Democrat, while white Southerners strayed from the party.
Even in the era after the adoption of the Civil Rights Act of '64 and the Voting Rights Act of '65, voting rights for minorities remains precarious, except the players have changed. Today is the Democratic Party that sponsors voting rights for minorities.
They've still had recent missteps, like their support of mass incarceration under Bill Clinton. And while the party has adopted more progressive platforms and did nominate this nation's first Black president,
thank you. God bless you. And may God bless the United States of America.
We know that there's still a long way to go.
The Klan terrorized Black Americans through murders and public floggings. Relief was granted only if they promised not to vote for Republican tickets, and violation of this oath was punishable by death. And since the Klan was targeted against Republicans in general, it did not limit its violence simply to black Republicans. In this old illustration, the Klan in North Carolina is about to hang a white Republican. And in 1871, a black U.S. congressman from South Carolina, Joseph Hayne Rainey, reported an incident concerning an elderly man named Dr. John Winsmith, a white Republican state senator.
The doctor, a man nearly 70 years of age, had been to town. Returning home late, he soon afterward retired. A little after midnight, he was aroused by someone knocking violently at his front door.
Get out of here! Got a gun!
The Klan shot down this state senator, a white state senator, because he was Republican and was fighting for the rights of blacks in his state. In that hail of bullets, Dr. Winsmith was hit 7 times. However, he survived the shooting and lived to testify before Congress about the attack made on him by the Klan. This is a Klan push card from 1868, about the size of a baseball card. It is entitled, Radical Members of the South Carolina Legislature. It shows 63 radicals. They were all Republicans. The Democrats called Republicans radicals because the Republican Party was biracial and allowed blacks to vote and participate in the political process, thus making them radical in the Democrats' eyes. Of the 63 radicals, or Republicans, in the South Carolina legislature, 50 were black and 13 were white. On the back of this card, all the names of the radical Republicans were listed. Evidently, if the Klan wanted to pay a night visit, as they had to Senator Winsmith, with the help of this card, they would know exactly who they were looking for.
Hey guys, thanks for watching that video. And I'm just going to put an overlay on something that hasn't really been out there, what people don't realize. And it kind of just goes with everything. The Democrats are still racist. All they've done, because of seeing how the North was growing, economy-wise, the federal bank came in, all that stuff like that, they realized that their ways weren't working after the Civil War, the whole nine. So they changed. And they didn't change because they wanted to. They changed because they needed to. They've been pandering the black communities, the illegals, all that stuff like that, Spanish, whatever. They've been pandering for years. That's how they stay racist in a sense. But and like in control. They've been planting seeds for years. If you look back in the 1950s and stuff, how people, the women wore dresses, everything was like, the American dream. They've been trying to, in a sense, they act, this is what they pretty much do. They like to plant seeds of destruction. Bring down the black community, bring down this, bring down that. We don't want them to have education. We want homeless. And then they flip-flop, like they've been doing for a long time. They flip-flop, and then they act like they're the ones that are they care about you. They're going to save you. They make pretend that the KKK is on the Republican side, so they have KKK members like sponsoring Trump and at a Trump rally going, yeah, go Trump. That is all a lie. They've been using the KKK for a long time to do stuff like that. They kill whites and blacks Republicans. They are the biggest manipulators of anybody. They do not care about, basically their agenda, but it's basically their agenda, their supremacy, all that stuff like that still stays in effect. They just do it a different way. They use news, they use fear-mongering, anything to cause you to hate racism, to hate, and they just pretend to act like they care and they want to be there and all this other stuff. And it's really just all BS. They do it on purpose. They've been planting seeds for years. If you look at decades of America's decline on family values, all of it, and they want more illegals to come in to do all these little tiny odd jobs. It's like it's almost like they want the blacks back in the fields picking cotton. They want illegals to be the new blacks. They want them to do all the little dirty work while they almost like they're slaves. And they want they still want the Republicans out. They want, basically, it's almost like a new era of slavery. They're going to sit there, and they have done nothing. That's why they don't do anything for the black communities. And have they done anything? Think about it. Have they done anything to make it to make the communities better throughout all the years? No. They cause worse problems. They make worse problems, and then they turn around and they act with fancy talk and everything. They act like they care. So they've been doing this for years. Trust me, they are still racist as all hell. They still believe in what, like, in a sense, white supremacy. Even Barack Obama was controlled by a group behind him, just like Joe Biden is. And this group, this New World, they call it New World Order. It's probably the New White Order. But that's how they've been doing it. They just do it a different way. They rebranded themselves as the people that cared about blacks and stuff like that, and that's how they got the black supports and the black voters and the Spanish voters, because they sit there and they literally lie and manipulate while they plant not only crap on the Republican, they actually put dirt on the Republican side to make them look like they're these corporate giants that are white supremacists. And it's frankly just not true. People need to start looking at the history and look at the years of decline in America. And I'm not even saying it's just the Democrats. There's some, they plant their seeds in the Republican side too. They plant their seeds everywhere, people. These people are evil. They do not care about America. They don't care about blacks. They don't care about illegals. All they do is use and abuse. And you guys got to start waking up. They're bad news. Start doing your history and start putting the pieces together.